Okay, my name is Brandon Navom. I am a senior software systems engineer for the MITRE Corporation, which is a nonprofit, federally funded research and development center, which is just a fancy way of saying a government think tank. I'm also a libertarian, and I feel I'm in a unique position where I can inform you guys about the way government operates. And I think that so many times people see things, and when government does something illogically, they automatically assume it's a conspiracy, when really it's just a byproduct of a crazy, out-of-control government. And so my purpose here today is hopefully inform you guys a little bit and get you guys to not think that every single thing is a conspiracy theory.
All right, so just for full disclosure, I think maybe you should tell them what you told me yesterday about your security.
Oh, what? How I got my security clearance?
No, that you have one.
Oh yeah, full disclosure, I do have a secret security clearance. No, I will not divulge any secret information to you guys. Stop asking. As far as how I got it, I don't know. Like the FBI agent who did it must have like gone on a bender the weekend before or something. But it is what it is, and you know, I'm just happy to be here. And as you can tell by the shirt, I was actually also a Ron Paul delegate down to the Republican National Convention.
Yeah!
So if anybody thinks I'm like some kind of a government plant here, no.
Are you a member of the NWO? Good cover.
You know, I am pretty legitimate, so just ask any of the people I'm camping with.
So you just admitted that you're a federal intelligence contractor, so you're an inside job, therefore your argument is invalid.
And we're all done here.
All right, I'm Danny Panzella. I'm a libertarian activist in New York City, a blogger, and a conspiracy theorist. I'm one of the crazy truthers that spent a couple of years down at Ground Zero handing out DVDs of Alex Jones movies.
Then you're a hero.
You and Luke,
So,
right?
yeah, so I left my tinfoil hat back at the tent, but so the way we're going to do this is we're going to have you guys decide what topics that we're going to debate, and I'm going to let Brandon choose when you guys, you know, maybe we should have people raise, how do you want to do it? Raise your hands, or, and then Brandon will pick, and then we'll just have a discussion and keep it cool.
Okay, so who? I feel bad for the guy who, like, you know, dislocated his shoulder, so I'm gonna give him the first question.
Okay. Okay. No. I can speak really loudly. The topic of vaccinations and whether or not they are meant to hinder us or cause autism on purpose or something along those lines.
So just repeat the question.
Vaccinations.
So the question was about vaccinations and whether it's a secret conspiracy to give all our children autism. And that wasn't exactly how he phrased it.
Are they filled with nanomachines?
I have the microphone, so I'm going to rephrase it to suit my purposes.
That's fine.
So we have a statement. I'm a software engineer, and we have a statement in the engineering world that talks about, you know, things happening and are they related or not. Okay, and we say a correlation is not causation. Okay, so especially when it comes to some of these vaccinations and autism, you know, a lot of the age at which these vaccinations occurs, it also happens to be the age in which autism starts to develop and that you first start to see those signs. So just because two things happen at the same time does not necessarily mean they're related. I mean, you can wake up at the crack of dawn every day and have coffee before sunrise, but waking up and having coffee has nothing to do with the sun rising. I guarantee it will happen without you waking up and having coffee.
Absolutely agree. Okay, so the first thing that I want to address is the meme that vaccines cause autism. It's kind of, I think this is a meme that the mainstream media likes to lock onto and repeat because they can use it to discredit people. So if anybody is familiar with Dr. Wakefield's work, who really leads the way on the link, not saying there's a cause, but a link between vaccines and autism, Dr. Wakefield never actually said vaccines cause autism. What he said was heavy metals and other adjuvants that are in the vaccines can cause inflammation in the gut, where I think it's something like 90% of our immune system is in our intestinal tract. The inflammation can then, in many kids, trigger autism that they may have already had as latency. Obviously, there's still a lot of research that has gone into this. Unfortunately, the research is not focused on the link between the heavy metals that are in our food, water, vaccines, and the air. That is not being studied, and Dr. Wakefield's study and his assertions are that these links need to be studied because we need to know more about the vaccines. I agree with you that correlation does not equal causation, but you can also not ignore the thousand, or I don't know what the statistics are. It's 1 in 150 now. So millions of children in this country that are developing autism. They have a seizure at around 18 months to 2 years old after they've gotten 62 doses of vaccines. They have a seizure, and then all of a sudden their development slows. So we cannot ignore, even though that may be considered anecdotal evidence, it cannot be ignored and really needs to be studied. So the question is there a conspiracy behind this? Well, it's hard to prove a conspiracy empirically because you have to know the players. I think we can all agree that there's certainly in the crony capitalist corporate America, there is a conspiracy to profit, whether that's an evil conspiracy or not. Honestly, I'm a capitalist and I'm not against profit, but if you're refusing to study the side effects of ingredients that you're putting in your vaccines, maybe because that's where the theory comes in, right? We don't know if this is something consciously that these companies are doing, saying, well, we know that there's probably not good stuff, so we don't even want to study that because then the FDA will shut us down and won't let us do this anymore. And if you think about the profit involved in the vaccine industry, you're vaccinating every kid that's born. I mean, in New York State, where I'm from, there are 2 vaccines that are mandatory, the K-shot and erythromycin. So every child born in New York State is buying that vaccine from the vaccine companies. So now I did the research on the K-shot when my son was born, and these studies, depending on which study you read, after this vaccine, the increase in the chance of juvenile diabetes was anywhere between 20% and 80%. So let's go on the low side. A 20% increase in juvenile diabetes as a result of this vaccine is that's going to cause a huge profit increase for for drug companies, that now these kids are going to be on insulin, they're going to be on all kinds of other medicines. When you compound medicines on top of each other, along with the garbage that's in our Monsanto food, that stuff tends to lead to health issues, and we're going to have to buy more drugs. So, I mean, I don't think that you can deny that as a culture, there's a benefit to the drug companies not to study the side effects of vaccines. And I don't know if anybody's aware of how the drug companies, that they have to report side effects. Basically, when a certain number of side effects are reported to doctors from patients, then they have to report that, and then at some point it reaches a level where now they have to put it in the commercial. So it has to go through so many levels, and it's not scientific at all. It's all based on hearsay. So if all of us go to our doctors and report a specific side effect, that doctor has to first of all agree with you that the side effect is a result of that, and then report it. So it's not really scientific how they're reporting these side effects. So, I mean, I rest my case, I guess.
And I just want to kind of follow up, because I think there's a broader question here of, I think I want to kind of change people's mentality a little bit to say, I think people default to saying everything is a conspiracy theory. And I really, if you just default to that, you're not having an open mind, you're not thinking, you're not processing information, and you're not discerning facts. And so I'm not saying nothing is a conspiracy theory, but I'm not saying that everything is a conspiracy theory. And so, you know, I think in medicine there's a saying, you know, if you hear galloping, think horses, not zebras. And which is just kind of a restatement of Occam's razor, saying that, you know, all things being equal, the simplest explanation is probably the truth. And, you know, with some guys here who get into this conspiracy theory where they think everything is a conspiracy, you guys don't think zebras, you guys think unicorns. So there is usually a simple explanation, and in this, so is there some big government conspiracy? No. But do pharmaceutical companies do shady things to make a profit? Oh yes, of course. That's not a conspiracy theory, that's like common knowledge.
Are there more than one person that these pharmaceutical companies involved? It's a fucking theory.
We'll definitely take
theory,
questions
it's a
towards the
theory.
end, but I wanna address what he said. First of all, Occam was part of the NWO, for sure.
Here we go.
But I kind of lost my train of thought on unicorns. I started thinking about unicorns. No, I think the government conspiracy, right, is crony capitalism. You've got lobbyists lobbying Congress to pass these laws and state governments to pass laws making vaccines mandatory for the children. We've got to save the children. So the K shot that I discussed earlier, 1 in 100,000 babies has a brain bleed when they're born. So they don't start producing vitamin K in their systems naturally till they're 8 days old. So the idea of the K shot is it promotes clotting. So if that 1 in 100,000 children gets a brain bleed, it will help them clot so they can survive. But it doesn't make sense logically because you're going to increase juvenile diabetes by 20% at least to save 1 in 100,000 children from a brain bleed. So I'm saying the conspiracy with the government. Is it a grand conspiracy? Or is Obama meeting with his science czars and saying we need to kill as many people as possible? Let's do a slow kill with vaccines so that we can also make a profit at the same time? No, that's probably not happening. But there are lobbyists saying we need to get as many kids taking these vaccines as possible. And yeah, they make it nice and fluffy that it's about saving children when really it's about profit motive. And that is a conspiracy, especially when there's fraud involved. When you refuse to disclose or even study the fact that there is mercury in the vaccines. Thimerosal has mercury in it. There is aluminum in the vaccines. There are many other adjuvants that they're not studying the effects of. I think that's fraud. You're not fully disclosing.
Like 20
Sure.
seconds. Because the thing is, I do it. I have that microphone.
Yep. Considering
Okay,
it
so-
took us 10 minutes to
Oh,
answer your
yeah, I
first
know.
question.
I'm so sorry. Just give me 1 second, okay? First, you stated aluminum. Well, the amount of aluminum in all the prison vaccinations under the age of 3 years old is less than 1,000th of 1 Tums. So taking 1 Tums antacid gives you 1,000 times more aluminum than all the vaccinations you're getting. You brought up thimerosal, which was taken out of almost every single vaccination outside the flu vaccine before 1999.
Check the
And then you
CDC's
brought up,
website.
and then you brought, no, in the flu vaccine is the one thing. And by the way,
According to the CDC's
and the amount of
website, that's not
mercury,
true.
the amount of mercury that's actually present within the flu vaccination.
Somebody
you
get me a
9 times-
tablet.
You get 9 times more of it within 1 tuna sandwich. Now you brought up the increase
Are babies under 2
you
taking
brought up
Tums, eating
the
tuna?
increase. You brought up the increase in autism. Well, after 1994, they expanded the definition of autism to include individuals with high IQ.
That certainly could.
They also stopped
Add the number.
labeling individuals with childhood schizophrenia as being autistic. So you have Asperger's, one where it's individuals who have high IQs but bad social skills are now being called autistic. Before 1994, they were considered people low
Narcissists
IQ
are
who had.
autistic.
Well, no, so if you
No,
broaden,
I agree with
if you broaden the definition, of course you're going to get an increase in the amount of cases.
Sure.
Then you brought up the K shot and other vaccinations. Is why are we giving them all these vaccines? Well, it turns out the actual effects of many of the diseases that people can get, whether they be TB, tetanus, polio, and a number of other diseases, they're way more likely to paralyze you or kill you than the supposed side effects. Have these side effects ever been tested? Yes, they have been tested, and there are some issues that are going to arise from side effects of any single drug, but they're one of the least of any of the drugs. They're way more likely to die, say, from aspirin,
right?
Maybe.
So in all those cases,
I don't take aspirin either.
I guess it's a good call, right? Aspirin must be a globalist thing in order to thin your
No,
blood
well-
so that you'll die. You'll die, you know, slowly, so that Obama can take over a population somehow, and he'll be able to make more money off of us, even though we're dying, so we can't even buy more products. I don't see the
So there's
contradiction there.
no profit motive behind wanting to get every kid to take an X amount of drug.
Vaccinations make up less than 3% of all the money that pharmaceutical companies make.
Right. But the sicknesses that may develop as a result, because can we at least agree that this link should be studied? By
It is
causing
studied.
inflammation. This link has never been studied.
No, and the amount
Dr.
of
Wakefield has studied it, and they took his medical license away.
because Dr. Wakefield's full of shit and he was trying to sue vaccination companies. He already had a vaccination lawsuit prior to the study was even created.
Well, hold on. Take it down a notch. We're friends. We can be friends.
I can shake his left hand, not the right. There you go.
Take it down a notch. I'm going to take this back now.
He's making too much sense, is what it is.
No, well,
Dr. Wakefield sued for what? Because he wanted them to study the link.
No, he
It
sued
has
them for
been
money!
studied. The link has
For
been
fucking
studied
money! There's your profit
extensively.
motive!
Dr. Wakefield is not making as much as the pharmaceutical industrial complex.
Hey, do you want to sit up here? Because I like you. Imagine what he could do with 2 good arms.
Except he's like a little, don't get so emotional, but we can have this discussion.
I'm
agree with
emotional
some of your-
about children dying of diseases all over the fucking world. A massive amount of the population
tell you how you
of
stop
the
children.
United States population became paralyzed because of polio. Now people are making up bullshit
Let me
to
tell you.
prevent smart people from getting vaccinations.
Okay.
Yes,
I
I'm
gave
passionate.
you
How
your say,
terrible.
All right. Let me tell you how you stop kids from getting sick. You feed them real food that has real vitamins and nutrients in it. Their immune systems work the way God intended them to work, or nature and evolution intended them to work, and it works.
Nature's awesome. Malaria is great.
Putting heavy metals and industrial chemicals and all that stuff is causing issues with the immune system, which leads to a lot more disease. So let's start eating real food.
Then why was polio eradicated after the polio, or
We need
close
to,
to eradicated?
if you look at the polio numbers, they dropped off 2 full years before the polio vaccine was publicly available. You can check it. Somebody bring me a tablet. We can bring this research up. It's not a conspiracy.
I'll go get my
It's on the
iPad.
books.
Okay, because the only cases of
I think we
polio
should
in the
move
last
on
50
because
years
this
are
is a
from the
little-
vaccine.
I don't want to be accused
Really?
of shutting
All of
down
India?
the beat, but
How about the Gardasil vaccine?
It's still cursed under the
Have you discussed that, where it's trying to be mandatory in many states? That's not for profit, right? They want to make the Gardasil
yes.
vaccine.
I think we should move on to another topic before people start to lose their shit.
They want to make the Gardasil vaccine mandatory for all children born
Okay.
after 1996.
Let me just say that even I fully believe that if you want to have the vaccine, take it, but it should not be mandatory.
Exactly.
You should not be forced.
That's a different issue.
And that's a different issue, and I think as libertarians, we can all agree on it. So let's go to
And
our
we should
next.
have informed consent, maybe, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's my argument, is that it's fraud because they're not really studying it and they're not releasing that information. I mean, if elderly people knew that, like I think it's 1 in 3,000 elderly people that take the flu shot then dies from the side effects. If they knew that, would they be rushing out? I think they deal with the flu.
Aren't there like 30 strains of HPV vaccine? And they don't even know if the Gardasil
They
vaccine
vaccinate.
actually works on it, but yet they want to make it mandatory.
All right, let's move on.
Let's move on to our next question.
Thank you.
That's not
Right out of the,
Do you want to
okay, sure.
Please let it be on something else besides that.
Yes, right out of the box. Your name again?
Brandon.
Brandon, you said that with, those of us that are, I call myself a truth seeker, it's not about conspiracies. Almost anything that's big that involves more than 2 people is a conspiracy. And theories are just theories. And I don't indulge in theories without a little bit of evidence to start with. But what you came up with right out of the box was that we are all thinking that the government is corrupt, from top to bottom, and that it's actually not possible, you say, because the government isn't that good at anything. But my understanding of how things work is that the government is meant to appear to be bumbling idiots, but when the powers of government need to be applied in specific areas to create whatever circumstance needs to come about in order for a 9/11 to happen without much interference, that those people are in place, and they're black ops. They probably don't involve George W. Bush, and that that the global elite have created strong central governments, have produced everything in order for those central governments to have the powers. I mean, just look at the power marching on, since 9/11. They want bigger central governments with more power, and it's silly not to kill 3,000 people in New York to do that.
All right, that's actually a really great question.
So the question is, was 9/11 an inside job?
Well, I think it was larger than that. It's not a conspiracy debate without a screaming guy and a 9/11 question. But to your larger point, which you bring up, which I think is very good. It shocks me that the same group of people who think that the government is incompetent and incapable of doing anything efficiently and effectively think that the government is capable of doing some of the most complete and complex conspiracy theories and pulling this off without a hitch, without any leaks, without any real, true evidence about it. It doesn't make sense.
Plenty of leaks.
Well, first of all, there's plenty of leaks. Time Magazine featured several 9/11 whistleblowers that they were Time whistleblowers of the year, and then people quickly forget about them. The people like Michael Springman, who was told by his bosses at the State Department, you need to issue these known terrorists, Mohammed Atta and his accomplices, their visas, even though they were coming up on watch lists, and he was saying, these guys are terrorists, I don't want to issue them visas. He came out and said that. Colleen Rowley, Tony Schaefer, there's plenty of whistleblowers that have come out. I mean, there's hundreds of them, Sibel Edmonds. So the question is,
the videographer, FEMA.
If there's that big of a conspiracy, well, how big does it really need to be? So you've got it just has to be people with high level clearances who, again, will profit from invading Iraq, who, at the time when we decided they had WMDs, Saddam was saying, well, I'm no longer going to trade my oil in dollars, I'm going to switch to the euro, and all of a sudden he has WMDs and we go in and take control of his country. Afghanistan, how much money did security contractors like yourself who create weapons, destroy a country, rebuild the country's infrastructure, and then, get contracts for their natural resources, how much money is that? So you want to weigh the life of 3,000 some odd or 5,000 people that perished on 9/11 against trillions of dollars in profit, or billions in the least, multi-billions.
And millions have been murdered.
I would say trillions. So do you really think the people sitting in the Pentagon care that much about those 3,000 people? They're sending hundreds of thousands of Americans to die in war. They're killing millions of civilians. Forget about the Iraqi army, it was 300,000 people. We've killed over 1 million people. So does life mean something to the people in the Pentagon? I mean, again, there's the theory. I don't know them personally. I can't tell you if Dick Cheney loves his neighbor or not. I'm going to say probably not. But maybe he does, and he really thinks that jihadists are going to take over America, and that we need to just wipe them out first. Maybe that's a sincere belief. I'm going to say probably not.
Okay, and just for disclosure, my company is actually a non-profit, federally funded research and development.
Oh no, I know, you mentioned that. I didn't mean your company.
And I don't actually make any weapons or anything that kills anybody. And
Not directly.
Not directly.
I didn't mean that to sound like
that's honestly good.
What kind of R&D are you doing?
I do software. Yeah.
Software.
So you guys are designing prisons.
Strategic
No.
missile system.
Although, had you been at my talk yesterday where I talked about it, you would have learned all about it.
All right,
But so, and this is one of the things that you talk about, and you bring up a good point that government works. It's really not directed. It's just this big laboring behemoth. And things happen not because they make sense, but because, you know, something happens in somebody's district or something like that, or, you know, some senator wants something to happen, or somebody, you know, lobbies some senator and gives them a ton of money for his campaign reelection. So, can things happen?
That's not the part of government I'm talking about. There's another part of government that's all black ops, that's very, very controlled, and, you know, we don't even know what they're doing. And I say
we don't even have to go that far into it. The what was the name of the report? I was thinking about it a minute ago. Northwoods? Not Northwoods. The one where they decided we needed to invade Iraq, Afghanistan, and Iraq. PNAC. The Project for New American Century. So here's a white paper that a research company like yourself, like your employers, developed. Some of the primary authors on it were Cheney, Rumsfeld, Dan Quayle, Wolfowitz. You know, all these guys, the guys that we collectively refer to as the neocons, right? You know, so they basically have been running foreign policy for, you know, I don't know, the past 4 or 5 administrations. And these guys wrote a document saying that to secure America, to keep America safe, we need to restructure the Middle East, and that starts with Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan.
A new Pearl Harbor.
They specifically mentioned it would take a Pearl Harbor type event to get the American people on board to support theater wars of that scale. And 2 years later, or 3 years later, 9/11 happens. So was 9/11 a planned event? I can't answer that. Did the U.S. government plan 9/11? I don't know. Did they allow it to happen? I think that is pretty clear from the leaks that have come out from the whistleblowers. I think it's pretty clear that certain people were intentionally let in. So now we have to look at the patterns that emerge. So the underwear bomber story, I don't know if you guys, how much you've studied it. I've written quite a bit about it. And the underwear bomber, the State Department admits, Michael Leiter of the National, the Counterterrorism Department, I forget his exact agency name, but it's all, I could pull it up. Michael Leiter admitted, we let him come into the country because we wanted to watch him and we didn't want to tip him off to a larger investigation. So apparently when they were letting this terrorist in to get on a plane, they didn't think to put him through a security screening even though they knew he was a terrorist, and he got on with a bomb in his underwear, right? Some plastic explosives. Apparently there was no blasting cap, so it was never in any real danger of exploding, but it was able to catch fire when he tried to ignite it. Well, then you have other plots that come out. The Portland Christmas tree bomber, where the feds develop somebody on the internet who hates America. They develop him, they train him, they teach him how to make a bomb. They replace it with a sawdust bomb. When he goes and pulls the trigger and sawdust pops out, then they slap cuffs on him. About 3 or 4 months ago in New York City, they had a guy who tried to put a bomb at the New York Federal Reserve. The feds were with him at the time. His handler was with him. They went to the Millennium Hotel next to the World Trade Center. He made the phone call. It was a cell phone triggered bomb. He made the phone call. As soon as he made the phone call, they slapped cuffs on him. So when you have and there are FBI whistleblowers who have quit. I spoke to one guy. I don't remember his name. It was at a Democracy Now! thing. Event, and he quit the FBI because he was like, he named 17 plots that were exactly like that would have never happened had the feds not been looking. So my opinion, my conspiracy theory is that when the terrorist attack happens, they use it to pursue an agenda. When it doesn't happen, they use it as PR. So look, see, all this money we're spending on security, it's worthwhile, even though they're the ones that are seeking out the jihadists, training them, giving them weapons. Speaking of Brzezinski, worked with bin Laden for years, and he's been involved in foreign policy for the last 40 years, Kissinger. So when you have this kind of repeated pattern over and over, it gets kind of, it's kind of hard to not think that, look, there's obviously something happening here, even though we don't know exactly what.
So I do think that the FBI is a problem where they're going out and they're seeking out these people and they're trying to actively push to get them to do these plots and foil them. But there's a very simple explanation. After 9/11, President Bush had to look good and he had to say, we need to be catching, 40 terrorist plots a year or whatever. So of course they're going to go out there. This is just, misincentivize big government. So of course they're going to go out there, they're going to push and try to find every single thing they can, and they're going to push to make an arrest, because that's how they're incentivized to make that bust, make that arrest. Just like district attorneys, they get their ranking just like in baseball, and so that's how they're incentivized.
So wait, I have a question then. So would Bush have a motive? Would his motive just be, I want to get reelected, so I want the American people to think I'm hard on terrorism? Or could it be that the police state agenda, the domestic security state, the increase of it, which is, we know there's plenty of profit motive. Michael Chertoff went to Congress 6 months before the underwear bombing, said we need these body scanners. He was consulting for Rapiscan. They said no, it's a privacy violation. 6 months later, a national security agency escorts this terrorist with a bomb onto a plane. Michael Chertoff goes on a media tour pushing these scanners, and guess what? Now they're in every airport. So is that a conspiracy? I'm going to say that's a conspiracy.
I'm not going to say. I'm going to say.
Both for profit and control.
It's simply a profit motive. I mean, Chertoff.
Fine, that's a conspiracy though.
I'm not going to call it a conspiracy. I'm going to say it's somebody in stock. It's no different than when somebody goes in, has money in a pharmaceutical company, and then pushes to get the FDA to approve it, even though it's a dangerous drug. It's not really a conspiracy theory. That's just, corporations using government to exert their own will.
Are corporations separate from government?
Can we define
Corporations
conspiracy
are in.
theory, please?
Corporations are
How would you define conspiracy theory?
I'm not going to get up to use the mic.
Two people.
You don't want your voice on record? Is that it? Can I bring it to you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I have a lot of cripples yelling at me.
I know.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. It's awesome so far. Okay, so
My approach is I'm more concerned about getting past people's defenses and how to approach them on this topic, because they usually seem to shut down as soon as you bring up certain keywords.
Well, I think evangelism is a different topic. And,
No, I want to talk about this.
Okay.
Here's my point here, right? So my approach is I like to sneak up on it. Like, I'll bring up Operation Northwoods and bring up how you can go online and check out the archives and see it for yourself. And that just goes to show that our Joint Chiefs of Staff and all the top military people from back in the day were willing to get together, and they did consider it a legitimate possibility that they would get together
and kill people in Miami, blame it on Cuba,
pretending to be Cuban terrorists. They actually thought of this and considered it. And to say that they wouldn't be able to pull that off today, after all this time, when you have the advancements in technology and information and it's like a conglomerate of the media that's all and has come together, and it's even more powerful that way. It would be even easier to pull it off. And
more centralization.
Right. So that just shows that A, they are willing to hurt people. B, they do think they can keep it a secret and use the media to pull it off, to lie to the world and the people, and they also believe they can pass it off and keep that the setting for. As in, that will become the history. They'll throw that in the archives.
They can write the history, but do they really need to keep it a secret? Because all they have to do is say that I'm crazy and I wear a tinfoil hat, and then the majority of the status quo says, yeah, that's crazy.
That builds
Unicorns don't exist.
It needs to build. That builds the credibility of the argument. You can't possibly say that conspiracy theory is impossible. It can never happen, because there is the probability. You'd be foolish to say that for a certainty. Just as anybody else would say that it is for certain 100% possible. You can say that it's most likely possible, but there's also the chance that it's not. It's just a wording. It's a you have to choose your words carefully and not beat up on people, like, you know what I'm saying. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Another really great question, and this is kind of a topic I wanted to hit on actually. If you look at, where were we at the Liberty Movement as a movement? Where were we in 2008? And where are we now, and how much have we grown? Okay, and I think it falls upon everybody here to grow the Liberty Movement and be a good ambassador to liberty. Okay, and when you go out there and you meet somebody and you start talking about a bunch of crazy stuff, it really turns people off. It really isolates them, right? And you can really, do the Liberty Movement a disservice and keep us as a fringe element rather than, you know, growing the movement and getting us to that, you know, critical mass where we can actually start to change stuff and we can actually make the society better because we have a lot of people on our side. And so, you know, it really is kind of tricky. You have to kind of word things very carefully. But, you know, when you start talking about lizard people, you know, you not only do a disservice to the liberty movement, but you do a disservice to some of the actual true conspiracies that happen. Like I say recently with the NSA, after Snowden leaked the information, we all know now that the NSA has a program where they were actually, you know, spying on us online, recording not only the phone calls. We knew before, but not to the extent, and it wasn't provable, right? So even 6 months ago, you could have said the NSA was spying on us, even our emails, even our Dropbox, even things we thought were kind of personal, right? Not public communication. And somebody could have said, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist, right? But it's true, it actually happened. So when you start going off the deep end, and, you know, going down like Alex Jones talking about tornado weapons and stuff like that, you really do a disservice to the actual true things we're trying to expose. So you're right, and I don't want you guys to not think and not ask questions. I still want you guys to examine everything. I want you to formulate your own opinions.
Just don't talk about those opinions, because you make liberty look crazy, and then nobody wants to be a libertarian.
Hold on,
The Austin Peterson School.
But here's how I approach it. Here's what I would say, right? Don't formulate the conclusion, because a lot of you guys ask really good questions, but it always ends up, you know, A, B, and C, and therefore lizard people control everything with the Bilderberg groups and the triad, and there are. That's the problem. And then you say, can you prove there aren't lizard people? And everyone walks away.
I see at least 3 lizard people in this audience.
So when you're approaching people, and I'll get you. When you're approaching people, just ask the questions, right? Don't dictate the answers. We're not about dictating answers. Ask the questions. Say, you know, I have a question. I don't understand how this could possibly happen, right? And let people formulate the questions themselves. And I find that's the best way to kind of put that question in people's mind and let them come up with the solution. That's the way to get them. That's the way to include them. And then you might see them at the next, you know, 9/11 Truth meeting or whatever, because they've done the research themselves. They've understood it. And now you've let them come to the conclusion themselves.
I actually agree with a lot of what you said, except for the fact that what tends to happen, especially in this community here, people tend to get ostracized, called fringe. I mean, you did it just in your own answer. So you're marginalizing people when you don't know if there are weather weapons. Listen, the UN has a treaty. They've made countries sign to not use weather weapons against each other. Bring it. Wow. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But when you do things like this, you're marginalizing people, you're collectivizing people, and that is the antithesis of what the liberty movement is about. For you to marginalize people because of what they believe. And it's not even like these beliefs are based on nothing. So if I have evidence that the UN made countries sign a treaty saying they wouldn't use weather weapons against each other, I mean, that says to me, does the UN say you guys are not allowed to use dragons against each other? No. So obviously, the UN must know that either weather weapons exist or are in development or there's the potential for it.
It's always the unicorns.
They're not saying we need to sign treaties that we're not allowed to use dragons and unicorns against each other. So, look, there's evidence behind even the craziest of theories. So, I don't know if anybody has any solid evidence on reptilians. If you do, bring it forward. I'll look at it. But you know, I think what the temptation is to do this, to marginalize, to make fun of, to make people feel ostracized, and honestly. I think that even though I think there are a lot more conspiracy theorists. Austin Peterson is a conspiracy theorist. Austin, you know you are. He just has this same attitude that we can't talk about the conspiracies because it makes us look crazy. It hurts our marketing. And I just disagree with that approach. I don't think we should be ostracizing or marginalizing anybody unless they're talking about violating the NAP. I don't think we should be ostracizing people for thinking they're reptilians that are running the conspiracy.
Okay, and so I'm having a lot of fun up here, and even though I'm teasing, I really don't want to ostracize people, and I don't want to limit the conversation. But when you're going to try to recruit people and you try to bring people into the liberty movement, I found, we have to stop thinking that everyone thinks like us, because they don't. The end goal is to make them think like us. The problem is they don't right now. So you have to understand, you have to understand, it has to be incremental. You have to help them, libertarianism is a journey, it's a path. And you have to help people down that path. And so I found, there's a really thin line, especially when you're talking with like neocons. And it's amazing how you can say to them, do you know about Agenda 21? And they will say, you're a nut job. Right? You say, oh, Agenda 21.
But I have the documents.
They want to reduce the world population by 85%, and that is the quickest way to turn off a conversation with the general population. However, if you go to any,
well, you admit that's true.
And yes. But so it's absolutely true. You can actually because I went to YouTube, I saw the Jacques Cousteau video, and I heard him say it with my own ears.
I know it's true.
That's why I know it's true.
And I still can't talk about it.
Sure.
Yes. No. Here's what you should say. You should know your audience. You should be a good salesman, and you should present things in a way that's going to be interesting to them. So if you go to any traditional Republican and you say, do you know the UN is trying to usurp our property rights?
Here's my problem.
They will
with this
say,
approach.
yes, I'm all on it. I'm all on board with it. Let's go do it. And then you can turn them on to all these other things that are going on, and you can turn them into a real good liberty person, a real good activist. So by not doing that, by not letting them go down that path, you're losing people. You're losing potential allies and activists.
Here's my problem with that approach. You're not trusting the message of liberty. Look, we didn't invent this message of liberty. Murray Rothbard didn't invent it. This is like something that is burned in the hearts of men for all time since we became conscious human beings to want to be free and to strive for that freedom. So what you're saying is the message of liberty isn't enough. We may taint it with these other kind of ancillary or other topics that are kind of related, and people aren't going to get it. When you talk to people about liberty, it's resonating in their hearts, and it's not so much that the understanding will come out of that, but this is something that is in all of us. So it's almost like you're saying, well, we don't trust people. I don't trust you guys, so I need to control the message. So nobody talk about conspiracies because I don't know if you're bringing up reptilians. You may be discussing 9/11 was an inside job, and you're saying reptilians are doing it, so you're screwing it all up. Shut up, people, because you're killing liberty. Yeah, we are. Human beings are imperfect people, and we do hurt liberty. All of us do. You collectivizing conspiracy theorists hurts liberty. So, that's all. I think we should move on.
From a woman.
And I have the documents.
Wait, from a woman? There's only a couple
Let's
in
do
here.
the woman.
How about the young lady right over here?
So I have kind of a unique perspective on this, considering I spent the past months directly interning for Peter King. Not gonna say that name out loud.
Peter King.
Yeah.
Senator
Yes.
King?
Representative King.
Representative King. Job.
No, I got stuck with him because I applied for an organization. Yeah, never applied for internships to organization. However, I had kind of an inside view on the Snowden incident. Okay, I saw some documents. Hold the mic to her. I saw some documents. Okay, I know what the NSA actually is doing. Okay, and I can tell you that this idea that they're grabbing emails is not yet possible. I can tell you they got a program that we don't know about that does do that. So, I mean, this idea that this conspiracies have to be hidden in the background doesn't work. I can tell you that as a former Republican, the way Gigi got me in was by talking about the shit that you can't talk about. because eventually you get pissed about talking about.
I'd actually like to talk about Snowden. So
Sure.
I think Snowden is a good topic to bring up because a lot of people feel like Snowden proves stuff a lot of us have been talking about for years. I think Snowden's an inside job.
Really?
I think that I've written about Julian Assange being an inside job. I think that these guys are good symbols and what they represent is good, but I mean, after Assange released the helicopter gunner video and those cables that kind of sort of embarrassed Hillary Clinton, everything that got leaked or everything that got attention really benefited the Pentagon. It was basically every Middle East country saying to the U.S., please bomb Iran and Syria. So it seems kind of convenient to me. I've spoken to people from the NSA and Army Intelligence, and they don't believe Bradley Manning could have possibly had access to the amount of information the federal government has accused him of leaking. I think the same is true of Snowden. I have a hard time believing that he had access to every CIA operative and black site. I just think that, he may be a great free speech symbol, but this is a great lesson, I guess, in not idolizing people and saying, oh, this guy's a hero. I think Bradley Manning is really the true hero in that whole story because I think he's a patsy. I think he legitimately wanted to leak some stuff and they just kind of applied all this other stuff to him to use him as a symbol of persecution. But I guess I just wanted to get that idea out there and just say I think that Snowden's an inside job as well. Obviously, we know that the NSA, 3 or 4 years ago it came out, Google's relationship with the NSA. And I love how now we hear about Google saying, no, we never cooperated with them, never gave them. I've even had people within our movement say, oh, I know a top-level guy at Google, and he says, we fight the feds on everything. We don't want to give them anything. I don't know. There's a lot of evidence that has come out over the last couple of years about Facebook. Facebook's first $12 million in venture capital came from EQTEL, which is a known CIA, kind of money laundering front company. So that's my piece, I guess.
Okay, once again, not everything's an inside job.
Everything's an inside job. You just got to find the angle.
And that's the thing. You could take any situation, no matter what it is, and call it an inside job or call it a conspiracy.
If me and Jack want to go to lunch and we don't want you to come because you're annoying and you keep talking about how conspiracy theorists should shut up, then that's a conspiracy. If we you know what? Don't invite me.
Conspiracy.
That's a conspiracy. Why are we so afraid of the word conspiracy? Everything's a conspiracy.
It's a way.
You hurt my feelings.
It's a
No, I didn't mean you were literally annoying, but I'm saying, if we thought hypothetically.
And so this is actually one of the kind of interesting topics for me because I would never comment on the Bradley Manning thing mainly because I have a security clearance and and this video is going to go up on the internet and the NSA scans all that stuff now. So I just want to say for the record, the NSA is a good and valuable organization.
I told you it was an inside job.
Okay, now that they've turned off the filters, I want to say for the record, I will flat out say, Snowden is a hero, and I think he will go down in history as a patriot. And for him to leave a really good job, in the tech industry and a girlfriend and a 401k and all of that, and have to flee halfway around the world. Yeah, but you don't talk about.
His girlfriend is Chinese. He left for China. He took all the info and had it on a flashcard. His supervisor wasn't even supposed to allow that in the building. Really? You think this wasn't an inside job? This was the most inside of inside jobs ever.
No, I don't think it was an inside job.
Then why did a supervisor allow an illegal object that went through a metal detector and was seen into a building where it's not allowed?
Every supervisor knows
Have you ever been into a secure building?
Yeah, I told you I just interned the Capitol.
Of course, it's
no, but have you ever been in a SCIF? Have you ever been in
the Pentagon?
Cybernet, anything?
Pentagon, yeah. Pentagon a couple times.
So
they let you in with Ed as your boyfriend?
Believe it or not, yeah. I was shocked. I got clearance.
you know, you can sneak things out, in and out very easily if you know what you're doing. No security is ever going to, you know, catch everything. And you know, I've been.
But how do you miss a flash drive?
Yeah, I mean that's
when
true.
you're, how do you miss a flash drive?
That's
It's not this inconspicuous object that was hidden like a cow. It's a freaking flash drive.
Do you know flash drives are like the most ubiquitous form of, you know, data transfer in the military? Like this is how, you know, you get things from
yeah, but flash drives are not allowed in the building of the
Let's
NSA.
move on to, let's do like a lightning question round.
Sure.
Alright, so we're going to move on to a lightning question round. Sir, you've had your hand up for a while, so just shout it out loud. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like to put a little different emphasis on what you've been talking about, because I think everything you've talked is all good. I think we have to look at 9/11 from the perspective of Halliburton was bankrupt prior to 9/11. They were bankrupt prior to attacking Iraq. But yet, as soon as Iraq was attacked, they were no longer bankrupt. Now, isn't that beautiful? See, I like to deal in numbers and facts. Another thing is Mr. Silverstein, who owned the Twin Towers, gee, 6 months prior, he puts out a multi-billion-dollar contract on it. Fact, okay? Fact. Saving Halliburton, fact. Furthermore,
Coincidence. There's thousands of
coincidences.
around one day.
Never before have airplanes ever landed on a soil that they haven't found the black boxes, okay? 4 of them were not found, so they tell us. Facts. That's why when I go out and talk to people, I mention facts. It's undeniable that Halliburton was bankrupt, and without attacking Iraq, which was, incidentally, was Dick Cheney's company, which he was CEO, ran into the
And George Soros. I want to mention George Soros was an equity partner as well in Halliburton. So they like to paint that as like this right-wing thing. No, it's not.
That's what it's all about. And I look at, when I go to somebody, I tell them, I say, you know, it's all good. You got to look at the numbers, follow the money. And why? One last thing. Why? How would people? Why were the stocks of those 2 airlines that crashed? Why were they short? Why were they shorted that day? And people made billions and millions of dollars. Oh, that's okay. Coincidence?
And the 9/11 Commission report didn't think that was important enough to even include in the
But it's all good.
All right, we got to move on. Chris Cantwell.
Calling someone a conspiracy theorist is like calling somebody a nigger. It's fucking ridiculous, and when you put a tinfoil hat on somebody, you might as well put a shit hat on yourself. If you think the state did something bad, you're probably right, because they're evil bastards, and they fuck up everything.
Some of it on purpose.
I would like to reiterate the non-aggression principle here, because you're kind of a big guy and I don't want you coming up here.
Now you're blaming.
You're probably, you know, carrying, so yeah.
Loud voices. All right, who's next? We can only take one more question. All right, I want to go with another female. Go ahead. You? Yeah. Up here.
So I came here because I'm really interested in this topic, and I can't answer a lot of the questions that you brought up, and I've really been wondering, and I talked to a friend about this, and he said, you know, there doesn't need to be a conspiracy. That's the direction the system drives. When people are, you know, there's a class of elite people who are controlling everything. Their self-interest is all to head in this direction.
Yes.
So if that is in fact the case, and I kind of heard you saying that, Danny, something else I've heard here is you can try to change the system, or you can just go and build something better. And so the whole conspiracy thing seems almost irrelevant to me. If it's going to keep people from coming into the movement, I'm not even going to go there, because look at this neat aquaponics dome that we're building up, that, you know, we'll be able to provide for ourselves. We're going to share it with you, and you know, I just think building something better is the focus that I want to take now.
I actually have a great response to that. If you let me get it out before.
I just want to point out, thank you for, you know, pointing out that this last hour has been pointless.
Here's the thing. I woke up and got into this movement because of 9/11 research. So 6 months before, let me say it this way. I had an argument with somebody about 9/11 being an inside job. I was arguing the skeptic or the
conspiracy theorist point of view, because it's really, you know, it's Orwellian, it's backwards. He's the conspiracy theorist. He's the one who believes whatever the government tells him. Or not whatever, but you know what I mean. That position. I was arguing, and I said, you know, you're a fucking asshole for saying that. Our government did 9/11. 6 months later, I was handing out DVDs at Ground Zero because I took an objective look. Instead of identifying with my brand, the Republicans, I took an objective look at the evidence. So I can never say I'm going to reject conspiracy theories because they don't wake people up, because they do. Alex Jones has, I believe, has brought as many people into this movement as Ron Paul has, if not more. It's possible more. So, and do all the Alex Jones conspiracy people eventually become voluntarists? No, not all of them don't. You know, not all of Ron Paul. So there's a lot of Ron Paul people in this very audience that are still, you know, trying to work within the system and all that. And that's, you know, so I don't want to say it's legitimate because I really don't think it's legitimate. I think it's a waste of effort. But, you know, I love Gigi for her effort. So I kind of lost my train of thought. The point is, I can't reject conspiracy theories because it's what woke me up. And I think that there are a lot of people that are very comfortable in this world, and they don't have a problem with the way it's run. Yeah, we want world peace, but that's kind of like a pie in the sky objective that's never really going to happen. So why bother work towards it, right? For most people don't change their lives because they want world peace. This community is different, but we weren't always different. We used to be in that, I was at least, I used to be in that category where, yeah, I wanted world peace, but I wasn't personally working towards it. So the truth of the evil of men to murder, kill, steal, destroy for profit, control, and all that, I think resets, for me, it reset my point of view. And I was like, I have to reevaluate all of my values. And you know what? At that point, the NAP was like the only thing that made moral sense to me. And so for me, it was something very powerful that dug very deep inside of me. And you know, maybe I might be an idiot, a dupe for believing these conspiracy theories. I don't know. I can't reject it because it got me here.
Nice.
So, you know, I don't want anybody to come away from this, and I think I haven't given the impression saying that you shouldn't go out there, you shouldn't try to formulate your own research and shouldn't do your own opinion. I want you to do that. I want you to ask the questions, you know. And for some people, maybe that's how they get into the liberty movement. That's what awakens them and pushes them down that path and gets them involved in a whole world of other things that I never even thought I would get into, you know, coming here and getting into the liberty movement. So whatever your path is, I just think we have a tendency to ostracize outsiders and hit them with all of these things, and we need to let people wake up on their own and present things in a way that, you know, draws them in rather than pushes them out. And that's the way we're going to grow this movement and the way we're going to make a better world.
I absolutely 100% agree. Thank you guys. I think that's a matter of us personally doing things in love and not doing things confrontationally. If we're loving our neighbor, then that is a natural extension. I totally agree.
Thank you guys. Thank you everybody for coming to the There are some free DVDs. There's a couple of people that will be handing them out, and there's some on the table. So for basic starter.
That was great.
You tend to think, well, let me help them out or let me defend myself. You don't have to defend yourself.
This policy, in many ways, is not a problem. It's a solution for organizing urban space.